On my daughter-in-law's birthday, she invited all her wealthy family and important friends. She prepared a film to show the guests her great successes. But without her realizing it, I switched the flash drive. And instead of the showcase of the perfect daughter-in-law, everyone saw the recording from the living room camera. What happened next destroyed her world in a matter of minutes. But to understand why I did it, I need to take you back 3 months, to the day I discovered who Victoria really was. The world doesn't fall apart with a bang, but with a whisper. I, Carol, at 67 years old, learned that on a Tuesday afternoon that seemed as innocent as any other. I had gone to my son David's house because he and Victoria were on a trip to Europe, and they asked me to water the plants in their enormous residence in the most exclusive neighborhood in the city. A 3-story mansion that Victoria loved to show off on her social media, with imported furniture and works of art that cost more than my entire house. I never felt comfortable in that place. Everything was too white, too cold, too perfect, as if real life couldn't touch those walls. But it was my son's house, and if he asked me for a favor, I did it without question. After watering the orchids in the garden and the plants on the terrace, I decided to make a coffee in the kitchen. I needed to sit down for a moment. My legs aren't what they used to be, and going up and down stairs leaves me breathless. That was when I saw the tablet on the kitchen island. It was on. The screen showed something that immediately caught my attention. It was the app for the house's security cameras. Victoria had insisted on installing cameras everywhere after a neighboring house was robbed the year before. Cameras in the yard, at the entrance, in the garage, even in the living room. David had told me that Victoria obsessively checked those cameras from her phone, as if she feared someone would steal her perfect life. I had never paid attention to those things. Technology isn't my thing. But something on that screen made me stop. There was a red notification blinking. It said, "Recording saved, main living room, 4 days ago." Without much thought, I touched the screen. Just out of curiosity. Just because it was there. Sometimes the worst truths arrive wrapped in coincidences. The video started to play. At first, I didn't understand what I was seeing. It was the house's living room, filmed from the angle of the camera installed in the upper corner. The date stamped was a Thursday afternoon. David should have been at his office, but Victoria was there. And she wasn't alone. A man entered the frame. I didn't recognize him. He was young, well-dressed, with his hair slicked back with gel. He approached Victoria with a familiarity that made my blood run cold. She laughed, a laugh I had never heard from her. Flirtatious, wild, free. He took her by the waist and kissed her. It was not an innocent kiss. It was the kiss of 2 people who were not meeting for the first time. My hands started to tremble. The coffee grew cold in the mug next to me, forgotten. I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. I wanted to turn it off. I wanted to run out of that house and forget what I had just seen. But I couldn't. Something stronger than my will kept me nailed to that spot. Watching my daughter-in-law betray my son in their own home, on the sofa where David and I had had tea together just 2 weeks before. But the physical betrayal wasn't the worst part. The worst came after. When they were finished, Victoria and that man sat on the sofa. She lit a cigarette. I never knew she smoked. David hated tobacco. She exhaled the smoke with a satisfied smile and began to talk. The audio was perfectly clear. "That fool thinks I'm happy," she said, laughing. "My husband, the successful engineer, the man who adores me as if I were a goddess. He has no idea that I'm bored with him every second." Her voice was venomous, full of contempt. The man next to her laughed, too. "And the family?" he asked. Victoria waved her hand, as if swatting away a fly. "Don't get me started on those people, especially the old woman. David's mother. Carol." My name sounded like a curse in her mouth. I felt the floor open up beneath my feet. She continued, "She's a pathetic woman. She comes here in her outdated dresses and her cheap shoes, pretending to accept me. But I know she judges me. I know she thinks I'm not good enough for her precious son, as if he were some prize. He comes from a family of public school teachers, and I gave him access to my world. He should be grateful to me. And so should she." The man laughed harder. "So what are you going to do?" he asked. Victoria put out the cigarette in an ashtray I had never seen in that house. "I'm going to keep being the perfect wife," she answered coldly. "I'm going to keep smiling at family dinners. I'm going to keep posting pictures of our wonderful life. And when I'm completely tired of it, when I've squeezed everything I need from this situation, I'll leave. With half of everything he has. That stupid old woman and her son won't even know what hit them." The screen went black. The video was over. But I was still there, standing in that immense, empty kitchen, feeling something inside me break and rebuild itself at the same time. I didn't cry. Tears would have been a luxury I couldn't afford at that moment. What I felt was something much deeper and more dangerous. A cold rage. An absolute clarity. A will of steel. Victoria had called me a stupid old woman. She had planned to destroy my son. She had turned their marriage into a cruel farce, and she thought no one would ever find out. She thought she was smarter than all of us. Poor, outdated, pathetic. I took the tablet with hands that no longer trembled. I searched the files. There were more videos. Many more. Victoria and that man had met at least 6 times in the last 2 months. Always when David was at work. Always in that living room. Always with the same arrogance of someone who believes they will never be discovered. I connected the tablet to my phone. I'm no technology expert, but I learned the basics when my students started using devices in class. I downloaded the videos, all of them. I saved them on my phone and then transferred them to a USB drive I found in a kitchen drawer. I deleted the history of my activity on the tablet. I left it exactly as I found it. I watered the rest of the plants. I locked the house, and I left. I drove back to my small apartment in silence. I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't call anyone. I just thought. About David. About how to tell him. About whether I should tell him. About the humiliation he would feel. About how Victoria had deceived him not just physically, but emotionally. She had used him, and she was planning to destroy him. When I got home, I sat on my old sofa and looked out the window. The sun was setting. The sky was turning orange and purple, beautiful and indifferent. I thought about all the things Victoria had said about me. Old, stupid, outdated, pathetic. Then I smiled. It was a small, barely perceptible smile, because in that moment, I made a decision. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to confront her in private like a desperate woman. I was going to wait. I was going to plan. And I was going to make sure that when Victoria fell, she fell so hard and so publicly that she could never get up again. Revenge is a dish best served cold. And I had just put mine in the freezer. The following days were the most difficult of my life. I had to become an actress. I had to smile when Victoria called me from Paris to tell me about the expensive restaurants David had taken her to. I had to say how lovely it was when she sent me photos of herself in front of the Eiffel Tower, hanging on my son's arm as if she were the most in-love wife in the world. I had to swallow every hateful word I wanted to scream at her. Because I had a plan. And that plan required patience. It required Victoria to never suspect that I knew the truth. It required her to continue believing she was smarter than all of us. That she was still the powerful woman pulling the strings while the rest of us were stupid puppets. The night David and Victoria returned from Europe, I went to their house for dinner. She prepared an elegant dinner with French dishes she had learned in Paris. Wine that cost $300 a bottle. Silver cutlery. Ivory-colored linen napkins. Everything perfect. Everything calculated to impress, to demonstrate her superiority. I sat at that table and ate in silence while Victoria talked non-stop about the trip, the 5-star hotels, the exclusive boutiques, the photos they had taken that she was already planning for her social media. David looked at her with adoration. My poor son. So blind. So in love with an illusion. At one point, Victoria got up to get dessert. David took the opportunity to lean towards me and whisper, "Mom, I'm the luckiest man in the world. She's perfect." His words were like knives in my chest, but I smiled. I squeezed his hand. I told him, "I know, son. I know." That night, when I returned to my apartment, I took the USB drive from the drawer where I had hidden it. I connected it to my computer and watched the videos again. This time with different eyes, not with pain, not with uncontrolled rage, with coldness, with analysis. I studied every detail, the date, the time, the camera angle, the exact words Victoria had said, the face of the man she was cheating on my son with. I needed help, but I couldn't tell David. Not yet. He was too in love, too blinded. If I showed him the videos now, Victoria would probably find a way to manipulate him, to convince him it was all a misunderstanding, that I was jealous, that I wanted to destroy their marriage because I never accepted him marrying someone from a higher social class. Then I thought of Gregory. Gregory had been the security technician at the school where I worked for years. He was a quiet, discreet man in his 50s. An expert in cameras, surveillance systems, technology. We had become friends after he helped me when my email was hacked 2 years ago. He was someone I could trust, someone who wouldn't ask unnecessary questions. I called him the next day. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop downtown. When I arrived, he was already there, drinking a black coffee and reading the newspaper. I sat across from him. I didn't waste time on trivial greetings. "Gregory, I need your help with something sensitive," I said directly. He put the newspaper aside and looked at me attentively. "Tell me," he replied. "You were always straightforward, Carol. I like that." I told him everything. I showed him the videos on my phone. I watched his expression change from neutral to serious. When I finished, he sighed and leaned back in his chair. "That woman is a snake," he said simply. "What do you need me to do?" I explained what I had in mind. I didn't want to just show the videos to David in private. That would be too easy for Victoria. She would cry. She would apologize. She would make up excuses. She would manipulate the situation. No, I wanted something bigger, something definitive. Something that would destroy her publicly in the same way she had planned to destroy my son. And then Gregory gave me the information I needed. He told me that Victoria was planning a big party for her 30th birthday. A huge celebration. She had hired the most exclusive event hall in the city. She would invite over 200 people, the entire elite. Her rich friends, David's business partners, her family, even some local celebrities. And, best of all, Victoria was preparing a special video to be shown at the party. A documentary about her perfect life, her happy marriage, her achievements, her success. A 15-minute narcissistic display where she would be the shining star everyone should admire. Gregory had heard David mention the video because Victoria had asked him to check the projection system at the event hall. She wanted to make sure everything was perfect, that the giant screens would show every detail in high definition, that the sound would be impeccable. In that moment, as Gregory told me those details, I felt all the pieces of the puzzle fall into place in my mind. The party, the video, the 200 people, the giant screen, the perfect moment for Victoria to shine, and the perfect moment for me to destroy her. "Can you help me switch the video?" I asked Gregory. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "I can do that," he said. "But it has to be perfect. If anything goes wrong, Victoria will suspect, and you'll be in trouble." I nodded. "I know." Over the next few weeks, Gregory and I met in secret. He taught me how the projection system worked, how to identify the correct flash drive, how to make an exact copy of the original file so that the flash drive would have the same name, the same icon, the same apparent size. Everything had to be identical. Victoria couldn't suspect a thing until it was too late. Meanwhile, I continued to play my part, the kind mother-in-law, the older woman who meekly accepted her place in the golden couple's life. I attended family dinners. I smiled when Victoria bragged about the party she was planning. I nodded when she showed me the gold-embossed invitations that cost $500 just to print. I even went with her to pick out her dress for the party. A champagne-colored gown with inlaid Swarovski crystals, $10,000. She tried on 5 different dresses and asked my opinion on each one. As if she really cared what I thought. As if she hadn't called me a stupid old woman 3 weeks ago on that recording. "It's beautiful," I said when she came out of the fitting room in the champagne dress. "You're going to shine." She smiled with satisfaction. "Thank you, Carol. You know, I really appreciate you coming with me." I know I can be difficult sometimes, but I value your presence in our lives. Lies. Every word that came out of her mouth was a lie wrapped in honey. 2 weeks before the party, Victoria invited me for tea at her house. I need to ask you a favor, she said in that sweet voice she used when she wanted to manipulate someone. At the party, I'm going to show a special video. It's very important to me. I'd like you to be in charge of giving it to the sound technician. It's just a flash drive, but I trust you to make sure it gets into the right hands. My heart leaped, but I kept my face calm. Of course, I replied. It would be an honor. She hugged me. Thank you, Carol. You're the best mother-in-law I could ask for. I had to control the urge to pull away, to tell her I knew exactly who she was. But I didn't. I smiled. I hugged her back. And I thought, you just handed me the weapon for your own destruction. That night, I called Gregory. We have a green light, I said. She's going to give me the flash drive. Perfect, he replied. Now we just need to prepare the replacement. We met the next day. Gregory had edited the security camera videos. He had cleaned them up. He had enhanced the audio. He had cut the irrelevant parts and left only the essentials. The betrayal, the cruel words about David, the insults towards me, all in a 12-minute video. Compact, devastating, irrefutable. We watched it together on his computer. When it finished, I was silent. Are you sure about this? Gregory asked me. Once you do this, there's no going back. Victoria will be destroyed. David will be devastated. Everything is going to change. I looked him in the eyes. I'm sure, I replied. She planned to destroy my son. She called a woman who opened her family's doors to her stupid. She turned a marriage into a farce. I'm not going to let her get away with it. She deserves for the world to see who she really is. Gregory nodded. Then we'll do it. The week before the party was the longest of my life. Every minute felt like an hour, every hour like a day. I knew what I was going to do. I knew there was no turning back. But still, in the quiet moments, when I was alone in my apartment, doubts came like shadows. Was I doing the right thing? Was this the way? Should I just talk to David in private and show him the videos? Allow him to decide what to do with that information? But then I remembered Victoria's words. Stupid old woman. And I remembered her plan. To squeeze him until there was nothing left and then leave with half of everything. And the doubts disappeared. This wasn't just revenge. It was justice. It was protection. It was necessary. Gregory called me every 2 days to confirm that everything was still on track. How are you feeling? He would ask. Steady, I would reply. And it was true. With each passing day, my resolve became stronger, colder, more unshakable. Marlene, my best friend of 30 years, noticed something was different about me. We met for lunch 4 days before the party. She ordered a salad. I had no appetite, but I ordered the same thing to avoid raising suspicion. Carol, what's wrong with you? She asked as she picked at her food. You seem distant, like you're planning something. I can't talk about it yet, I replied, but you'll know soon. I just ask that you trust me. Marlene put down her fork and took my hand. I've always trusted you. You're the wisest woman I know. If you're doing something, I know it has a good reason. Just be careful. I squeezed her hand back. I will be. On Wednesday night, 3 days before the party, Victoria called me. Carol, can you come by the house tomorrow? I need to give you the flash drive for the party. I want to go over it with you, to make sure you understand the instructions. My pulse quickened, but my voice sounded perfectly calm. Of course. What time? 3 in the afternoon is good. Perfect. I'll be there. I hung up the phone and stared at my living room wall for a long time. This was really happening. In 24 hours, I would have the original flash drive in my hands, and I would have the opportunity to switch it for the one Gregory and I had prepared. The flash drive that would destroy Victoria's perfect world in front of 200 people. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, going over every detail of the plan again and again. Gregory had given me precise instructions. The fake flash drive had to be exactly the same as the original. Same color, same size, same weight. Victoria couldn't notice the difference. I had to act natural, calm, like the foolish mother-in-law she thought I was. On Thursday at 3 o'clock sharp, I arrived at Victoria's house. She opened the door dressed in a pastel pink sweatsuit. She had just returned from the gym. Her skin glowed with that healthy radiance of someone who has the time and money to take care of herself. "Carol, come in. Do you want something to drink?" "Sparkling water with lemon is fine," I replied. She led me to the kitchen. On the counter was the flash drive. It was silver, thin, with a small gold chain hanging from it. Victoria picked it up carefully, almost reverently. "This is the most important video of my life," she told me. 15 minutes where I show everything I've achieved. My career, my marriage, my family, my success. I want everyone to see who I really am." "Oh, they'll see," I thought. "They will definitely see." She explained the instructions. I was to arrive at the event hall at 7 o'clock in the evening, an hour before the party started. The sound technician would be waiting by the stage. His name was Chris. I was to give him the flash drive directly into his hands. He would load it into the system and test it before the guests arrived. The video would be projected at exactly 9:30 in the evening, right after Victoria blew out the candles on her cake. "Did you get all that?" she asked, speaking to me as if I were a small child. "Yes, I understood perfectly," I replied. "You can trust me." She smiled. "I know. That's why I'm asking you. You're the only person I trust completely." The words would have made me laugh if the situation weren't so serious. She trusted me, the stupid old woman, the woman she planned to publicly humiliate. I took the flash drive and put it in my purse. Victoria hugged me. "Thank you, Carol. This means a lot to me." "You're welcome," I replied. "I'm happy to help." I left her house walking slowly, as if nothing extraordinary were happening. I got into my car. I closed the door. And only then did I take the flash drive out of my purse and look at it. This small object, this piece of metal and plastic that weighed barely a few ounces. This was the instrument of Victoria's downfall. I drove directly to Gregory's house. He was waiting for me in his workshop, surrounded by computers and technical equipment. I handed him the flash drive. He first connected it to his computer and checked the contents. It was exactly what Victoria had promised. A professionally edited video. Emotional background music, images of Victoria at different stages of her life, photos from her wedding to David, clips of her giving speeches at business conferences, all designed to make her look like a successful, loving, perfect woman. Gregory saved a copy of the original video on his computer. Then he took out the flash drive we had prepared. It was identical. Same model, same brand, same silver color. It even had an identical gold chain. He had found the same model at an online store and bought it specifically for this. He loaded our video onto the fake flash drive, the security camera video, the scenes of betrayal, the venomous words, everything. Then he did something clever. He changed the file name and the icon to look exactly like Victoria's original video. If someone plugged the flash drive into a computer and saw the file list, it would appear to be the same happy family video. Only when they played it would they see the truth. "Ready?" Gregory asked me when he was finished. I looked at him. This man who barely knew me but had decided to help me because he understood that what I was doing was necessary. "Gregory, have you ever done something like this before?" I asked. He shook his head. "Never. But I've seen enough evil in my life to know when someone deserves to be exposed. That woman didn't just betray you and your son. She betrayed trust, marriage, family. She deserves what's coming to her." I took the fake flash drive. I held it in my hand. It was light, insignificant, but it held the power to destroy a life, to reveal the truth, to serve justice. "What if David never forgives me for this?" I whispered. "What if he thinks I'm cruel, that I'm the villain of this story?" Gregory put a hand on my shoulder. "Carol, your son is going to suffer no matter how he finds out. But it's better for him to suffer now and be free than to continue living a lie that will eventually destroy him anyway." Victoria already planned her exit. She's already decided she's going to leave him. She's just waiting for the right moment to maximize her gain. You're not destroying their marriage. Their marriage is already destroyed. You're just speeding up the inevitable and making sure your son isn't the only victim. His words gave me the strength I needed. He was right. I wasn't the villain. Victoria was. I was just a mother protecting her son in the most effective way I knew how. That night, I returned to my apartment with the fake flash drive hidden at the bottom of my purse. I put it in my nightstand drawer, next to the few pieces of jewelry I owned. I slept better that night than I had in the last 3 weeks. Because I knew the path was set. I knew there was no turning back. And I knew I was doing the right thing. On Friday, the day before the party, David came to visit me. "Mom, I just wanted to thank you for helping Victoria with the video," he said as we had coffee in my small living room. "I know she can be demanding sometimes, but she really appreciates everything you do for us." I looked at my son, his honest face, his eyes full of love for a woman who didn't deserve a second of his devotion. I had to restrain myself from telling him everything right then, but I held firm. "It's a pleasure to help," I replied. "I want Victoria to have the perfect party." He smiled. "It's going to be incredible. She's worked so hard on this. The video is going to be the most special moment of the night." "I know, son. I know." Saturday dawned with a clear sky. One of those perfect days where the sun shines without being oppressive, and the air has that crystalline quality that makes everything seem sharper. A perfect day for a party. A perfect day for a revelation. I woke up at 6 in the morning, even though the party didn't start until 8 in the evening. I couldn't sleep anymore. Adrenaline was coursing through my veins like electricity. I made myself a coffee and sat by my living room window. I watched as the city slowly woke up. Neighbors walking their dogs, kids playing in the street. The normal life of a normal Saturday. Except for me, this was not a normal day. This was the day everything would change forever. David called me at 10 in the morning. "Mom, just wanted to remind you that the party starts at 8, but Victoria wants you to get there at 7 to give the flash drive to the technician. Is everything okay? Do you have the flash drive?" "Yes, son. I have it. I'll be there on time. Don't worry." He sighed with relief. "Thanks, Mom. You're the best." Victoria is a little nervous. You know how she is with these things. She wants everything to be perfect. Oh, everything is going to be perfect, I thought. Just not in the way she expects. I spent the day in a sort of trance. I took a calm shower. I dried my hair. I put on light makeup. I chose my best dress. It was a wine color, elegant but discreet. Comfortable low-heeled shoes. A pearl necklace that had been my mother's. I wanted to look dignified, respectable. I wanted that when it was all over, no one could say the crazy old mother-in-law had made a scene. No, I was going to be the picture of composure. At 5 in the afternoon, Marlene called me. "How are you?" Her voice sounded worried. "Calm," I replied. "Calmer than I've been in weeks. Carol, whatever you're going to do tonight, just promise me you've thought about all the consequences." "I have," I assured her, "and I'm at peace with my decision." She was silent for a moment. "Then, may God be with you. And with me too, because I have a feeling tonight is going to be memorable." At 6:15, I left my apartment. The flash drive was in my purse. I had checked it 3 times to make sure it was the right one. The fake one. The one that contained the truth. I drove to the event hall with steady hands on the steering wheel. No music, no distractions. Just me and my thoughts. The hall was in the most exclusive part of the city. A modern building of glass and steel. Elegant lights. Perfectly manicured gardens. A huge digital sign at the entrance announced Victoria Montero's celebration, Imperial Ballroom, 3rd floor. There were even professional photographers setting up at the entrance. This wasn't just a birthday party. It was an event. A production. A stage where Victoria planned to crown herself the queen she believed she was. I parked my old car between the Mercedes and BMWs of the first arriving guests. I took my purse. I took a deep breath. And I went inside. The lobby was impressive. Marble floors. Crystal chandeliers. A huge floral arrangement in the center that probably cost more than my monthly rent. I took the elevator to the 3rd floor. The doors opened to reveal the Imperial Ballroom. It was spectacular. Round tables with champagne-colored tablecloths. Centerpieces with white orchids and candles. A huge dance floor with LED lights on the floor. a stage at the front with pearl-colored velvet curtains, and behind the stage, 2 giant screens. Each must have been at least 12 feet wide. On those screens, the video would be projected. The video that 200 people would see. The video that would destroy Victoria. I found Chris by the stage, exactly where Victoria said he would be. He was a young man, about 30, with headphones hanging around his neck and a tablet in his hands. "Excuse me, are you Chris?" I asked. He looked up. "Yes, that's me. You must be Mrs. Carroll? Victoria's mother-in-law." I nodded. "I have the flash drive with the special video." His eyes lit up. "Perfect. Right on time. Let me plug it in and do a quick test before the guests arrive." I took the flash drive out of my purse. My hands didn't tremble. My voice didn't waver. I was completely calm, as if I were handing over something as simple as a recipe. "Here it is," I said. He took it and plugged it into his laptop. The computer screen showed the file, on P4, Victoria's Celebration, Final Video, MP4. The same name as the original file, the same icon, everything perfect. Chris clicked to play it as a test. "Wait," I said quickly. "Could you not play the whole thing? Victoria wants it to be a complete surprise. Even for the staff. She'd prefer no one sees it before the official screening." Chris seemed confused for a moment. "But I usually do a full test run to make sure there are no technical issues." "I understand," I interrupted with my best kind grandmother smile. "But Victoria was very specific about this. You just need to confirm that the file opens correctly. The rest must be a surprise. She's very particular about these things." He sighed but nodded. "All right, if that's what she wants." He played only the first 5 seconds. The screen showed the Victoria logo that Gregory had placed at the beginning, identical to the original video's logo. Then Chris stopped the playback. "Perfect. The file works fine. I have it scheduled for 9:30 sharp, right after the cake." I thanked him and walked away before he could ask more questions. I walked to the bar area and ordered a glass of water. My hands were still steady, but my heart was beating fast. I had just done it. The flash drive was in the system. The video was ready. In 3 hours, Victoria's entire world would come crashing down, and there was absolutely nothing she could do to stop it. The guests started to arrive shortly after 7:30. First came the close friends. Women in designer dresses and jewelry that sparkled under the lights. Men in perfectly tailored suits. All with that confidence that comes from money and status. They arrived in groups, laughing, greeting each other with kisses on the cheek, sipping champagne from circulating trays. At 8 o'clock sharp, the doors swung wide open and Victoria made her entrance. Her entrance was calculated for impact. The champagne-colored dress with its beadwork made her sparkle as if she were wearing sunlight. Her hair was styled in perfect waves. Her makeup was flawless. She looked like a movie star, like royalty, like someone who had the world at her feet. David entered beside her, handsome in his black tuxedo. He looked at her with adoration. He held her hand as if it were the most precious thing he had ever touched. Behind them came Victoria's parents, Richard and Barbara. He owned a chain of car dealerships. She was the president of an exclusive social club. Both looked at their daughter with pride, with satisfaction, as if they had created a masterpiece. The music started to play. Victoria and David opened the dance floor with a waltz. Everyone watched them. Everyone clapped. The perfect couple, the dream marriage, the enviable life. I stood by a column, watching. No one paid any attention to me. I was just the old mother-in-law, invisible, irrelevant, exactly how Victoria wanted me. Dinner was served at 8:30. Salmon with dill sauce, truffle risotto, salad with raspberry vinaigrette, $500 a bottle wine. Everything exquisite, everything perfect. I ate mechanically, without tasting anything. My mind was focused on one thing, the clock, the hands moving relentlessly towards 9:30. At 9:15, the ballroom lights dimmed. Waiters brought out a huge 4-tiered cake, covered in white fondant and gold decorations. 30 candles glowed on top. Everyone sang happy birthday. Victoria blew out the candles with a radiant smile. She hugged David. She waved to the crowd. She thanked everyone for coming to her special night, and then she said the words that sealed her fate. And now, I want to share something very special with all of you. I've prepared a video about my life, about my family, about everything that means the world to me. I hope you enjoy it. The music stopped. The lights went out completely. The ballroom fell silent. 200 people looking towards the giant screens. Victoria sat at the head table, holding David's hand, waiting to see her glorification projected in high definition. Chris pressed the play button. The screens lit up, and the video that I had put there began. The first 5 seconds were normal. Victoria's logo appeared on the giant screens, elegant and professional, exactly as it was supposed to be. Victoria smiled, squeezing David's hand. The guests settled into their chairs, champagne glasses in hand, ready to watch the birthday girl's perfect life projected on the big screen. But then the logo disappeared. And what appeared next was not a collection of happy family photos. It was the living room of Victoria and David's house, filmed from the security camera's angle. The date in the upper right corner marked a Thursday from 2 months ago, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. At first, people seemed confused. Some tilted their heads. Why were they watching an empty living room? Was this part of some artistic video? But I knew what was coming, and I braced myself. Victoria entered the frame. She was wearing casual clothes, tight jeans, a coral-colored blouse. Her hair was down. She looked relaxed, comfortable, in her own territory. And behind her, he entered. The man I had seen in the original recordings. Young, attractive, well-dressed. Definitely not David. The murmuring started immediately. A collective whisper that rippled through the ballroom like a wave. Who is that man? Why is Victoria with him? What is happening? I saw David straighten up in his chair, letting go of Victoria's hand. His face went from confusion to something darker. Something I had never seen in my son. Fear. Victoria stood up abruptly. Her face had lost all its color. She shouted towards the stage. "Stop that! Turn off the video now!" But her voice was lost in the enormous room. And besides, it was too late. Because on the giant screens, the man had just taken Victoria by the waist and kissed her. It was not an innocent kiss. It was intense, passionate, intimate. The ballroom exploded in gasped exclamations. Women brought their hands to their mouths. Men exchanged uncomfortable glances. Victoria's parents jumped to their feet. Her father, Richard, yelled, "What the hell is this?" Her mother, Barbara, just froze, staring at the screens in horror. Victoria ran towards the stage, tripping over her $10,000 dress. "Chris, turn that off immediately." Chris was by his equipment, frantically pushing buttons. But the system wasn't responding. Gregory had done his job well. The video was programmed to play in its entirety without interruption. No pauses. No way to stop it. On the screens, the scene continued. Victoria and the man broke from the kiss. They sat on the sofa. The same sofa where David and I had had tea, where we had talked about life, where my son had built memories with the woman he loved, and now that woman was on that sofa with another man, lighting a cigarette and laughing. The audio was perfectly clear. Victoria's voice filled the ballroom through the professional speakers. "That fool thinks I'm happy. My husband, the successful engineer, the man who adores me as if I were a goddess, he has no idea that I'm bored with him every second." The silence that followed was absolute. 200 people holding their breath, 200 pairs of eyes shifting between the screens and the woman in the champagne dress, who was desperately running, trying to stop her own destruction. David had stood up. His face was a mask of disbelief, of pain, of utter betrayal. "That fool," he repeated in a low voice, as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. "She called me a fool." On the screens, the man asked Victoria about David's family. And there it came. The words I had heard alone in that kitchen 3 months ago. The words that had unleashed all of this. Victoria responded with contempt. "Don't get me started on those people, especially the old woman, David's mother, Carol." Every eye in the room turned towards me. I was still standing by my column, completely motionless. My face showed no emotion. I wasn't smiling with satisfaction. I wasn't crying in pain. I was just watching. As I had been watching for 3 months, Victoria's voice continued from the speakers. She's a pathetic woman. She comes here in her outdated dresses and her cheap shoes, pretending to accept me. But I know she judges me. I know she thinks I'm not good enough for her precious son, as if he were some prize. He comes from a family of public school teachers, and I gave him access to my world. He should be grateful to me, and so should she. Barbara, Victoria's mother, let out a sob. She covered her face with her hands. Richard, her father, stared at the screens with a clenched jaw, the veins in his neck bulging with fury. Not at me, at his daughter. At the woman who was publicly humiliating them in front of their entire social elite. Victoria had stopped running. She had frozen in the middle of the dance floor, watching the screens with tears streaming down her perfectly made-up face. Her mask of perfection was literally melting. Black mascara stained her cheeks. Her red lipstick was smeared. She no longer looked like a queen. She looked exactly like what she was, a liar who had been caught. The video continued. The man on the screen asked, "And what are you going to do?" And Victoria replied with that coldness that had chilled my blood the first time I heard it, "I'm going to keep being the perfect wife. I'm going to keep smiling at family dinners. I'm going to keep posting pictures of our wonderful life. And when I'm completely tired of it, when I've squeezed everything I need from this situation, I'll leave. With half of everything he has. That stupid old woman and her son won't even know what hit them." David took a step back, as if he had been physically struck. "You planned it all," he whispered. "From the beginning. It was all a lie." He looked at Victoria with eyes that no longer held love, only emptiness. Only the terrible realization that the last 3 years of his life had been a sham. Some guests began to get up and head for the exit. They didn't want to be part of this scandal. They didn't want their names associated with this public humiliation. But others stayed, unable to look away. It was like witnessing a car crash. Horrible, but impossible to ignore. On the screens, the scenes continued. More conversations, more betrayals, more moments of intimacy between Victoria and that man. Kisses, caresses, laughter. And in between, more insults, more contempt for David, more mockery of his family, of me. Marlene, who was sitting at a nearby table, met my gaze. Her eyes were filled with tears, but not of sadness, of something more like awe, admiration. She understood. She understood exactly what I had done and why. Victoria finally found her voice. She turned to the crowd and screamed, "This is a fake! Someone edited that video. None of that is real. Someone is trying to destroy me." But her voice sounded hollow, desperate. And no one believed her, because everyone had seen her face on those screens. They had heard her voice. They had witnessed her true nature. David walked slowly towards her. Victoria held out her hands to him, tears streaming down her face. "David, please, you have to believe me. This isn't what it looks like. I love you. I've always loved you." But David stopped about 3 feet away. He didn't touch her. He didn't yell. He just looked at her with a deep sadness and said, "No, you don't love me. You never loved me. And I think somewhere deep down, I always knew." Victoria's parents had come down from the stage. Barbara was crying openly. Richard's face was red with shame and fury. He approached his daughter, and for the first time that night, someone else spoke with real authority. "We're leaving. Now. You have humiliated this family. You have destroyed your reputation. And worst of all, you have hurt a good man who deserved none of this." Victoria turned to her father with pleading eyes. "Dad, please." But Richard cut her off. "No, this night is over for you. For us. For everyone." The video finally came to an end. The screens went black. The ballroom lights slowly came up, revealing the complete chaos. Abandoned tables. Guests murmuring in groups. Some taking pictures with their phones. Others making urgent calls. The news of what had happened tonight would spread like wildfire. By morning, everyone would know that Victoria Montero had been exposed as a liar and a cheater at her own birthday party. And in the midst of all that chaos, David finally sought me out with his gaze. He walked towards me slowly, as if in a trance. When he reached where I was standing, he looked at me for a long moment. "Mom," he finally said, "it was you? You switched the video." I didn't deny it. There was no point. I simply nodded. Yes, it was me. David looked at me as if seeing me for the first time in his life. As if the woman who had raised him, who had taught him to read, who had worked double shifts to pay for his education, was suddenly a stranger. His eyes were red, but he wasn't crying. He was still in shock, too stunned to fully process what he had just witnessed. "Why?" he asked in a hoarse voice. "Why did you do it like this? Why didn't you just tell me in private? Why in front of everyone?" I took a slow breath before answering. My voice came out calm, firm, without a trace of regret. "Because if I had shown you in private, she would have found a way to manipulate you. She would have cried. She would have made up excuses. She would have said that man was blackmailing her, that the video was edited, that I was jealous of your relationship with her. And maybe, just maybe, you would have believed her, because you loved her, because you wanted to believe her." David closed his eyes. A single tear finally escaped and ran down his cheek. He said nothing, because he knew I was right. I continued, my voice softer now but just as firm. "Son, she didn't just cheat on you physically, she planned to destroy you." I heard her own words. "She was going to squeeze you until there was nothing left, and then leave with half of everything you have. She called you a fool. She called me a stupid old woman. She mocked your family, your origins, everything you are. And the worst part is, she did it while smiling to your face every single day. That's not love, David. That's calculated cruelty." He opened his eyes and looked at me with something that seemed like pain mixed with understanding. "But you didn't have to humiliate her like that. In front of everyone. In front of her parents. In front of..." His voice broke. "In front of my work colleagues. In front of my friends." "Yes, I did," I answered without hesitation. "Because she was planning to do the exact same thing to you. Only in her version, you were going to be the one humiliated. The fool who didn't realize his wife was using him, the man who lost half of his assets without even knowing why. I just got ahead of it. I made sure the truth came to light before she could do any more damage." David ran his hands over his face, trying to process everything. Around us, the ballroom continued to empty. The guests left in groups, some looking back with morbid curiosity, others hurrying to escape the scandal. Waiters cleared, abandoned plates with uncomfortable expressions. The professional photographers packed their cameras, knowing that the photos from this night would never see a happy memory album. Victoria was still in the middle of the dance floor, now surrounded only by her parents. Barbara held her by the arms while Richard spoke on the phone, probably calling his driver. The $10,000 dress was wrinkled, the makeup was ruined. The perfect hairstyle was a mess. She was the physical image of a life that had collapsed in 12 minutes. She saw me. Across the nearly empty ballroom, our eyes met. And in her eyes, I saw something I had never seen before. Not arrogance, not contempt, but pure fear. Because she had finally understood that she had completely underestimated the stupid old woman. She broke free from her mother's arms and walked towards me. Her heels clicked on the marble floor like death sentences. David tensed beside me, but he didn't move. Victoria stopped in front of me, trembling with fury and humiliation. "You," she hissed. "You did this. You planned everything. You spied on me. You stole those recordings. You switched the video. It was all your twisted revenge because you never accepted me." "No," I corrected her calmly. "It wasn't revenge. It was protection. I protected my son from a woman who planned to destroy him. And as for spying on you, it was your own security cameras that recorded you. You installed those devices. You brought that man into your home. You said those horrible words. I just made sure the truth came to light." Victoria raised her hand as if to slap me. But before she could, David stopped her. He took her wrist firmly, not with violence, but with authority. "No," he said simply, "you've done enough damage." She looked at him with pleading eyes. "David, please, we can fix this." "We can enough," he interrupted her. His voice was different now, harder, colder. He no longer sounded like the enamored man who had entered this party 3 hours ago. He sounded like someone who had just woken up from a long and painful dream. I don't want your explanations. I don't want your excuses. I want you to get your things out of my house tomorrow. Everything. And then I want my lawyer to receive the divorce papers. Victoria took a step back as if she'd been struck. Divorce. The word fell between them like a bomb. Divorce, she repeated in a broken voice. But David, our marriage, what we built, we didn't build anything, he replied with a coldness that surprised even me. You built a lie, and I was stupid enough to believe it, but that ended tonight. It ended the moment I saw that video, the moment I heard you call me a fool, the moment I understood that the last 3 years of my life were a performance on your part. Barbara came over and took her daughter's arm. Victoria, let's go. That's enough. But Victoria resisted, her eyes fixed on David with desperation. You're going to regret this, she said, her voice wavering between a plea and a threat. You're going to realize you made a mistake, that you listened to your mother instead of your wife. David shook his head slowly. No. The only mistake I made was not seeing your true nature sooner. But that ends now, too. Richard finally intervened, his voice full of authority and shame. Victoria, we're leaving now. There's nothing more to be said here. He practically dragged his daughter towards the exit. Victoria struggled briefly, looking back with eyes full of tears and rage, but she finally let herself be led away. Her parents escorted her out of the ballroom, leaving behind the half-eaten cake, the perfect decorations, and the remnants of the life she had tried to build on lies. When the doors closed behind them, the ballroom was nearly empty. Only a few straggling guests remained, Chris packing up his equipment with an uncomfortable expression, and waiters cleaning up silently. David and I stood in the middle of all that ruined perfection. My son sank into a nearby chair, burying his face in his hands. He let out a sob. Deep, heart-wrenching, the sound of a heart breaking. I sat beside him and placed my hand on his back, making gentle circles like I did when he was a boy and had nightmares. How did I not see it? He asked between sobs. How could I have been so blind? All the signs were there. The times she went out without explanation. The messages she hid. The calls she wouldn't answer in front of me. How did I not see it? Because you didn't want to see it, I answered softly. Because you loved her. And when you love someone, you want to believe the best in them. It's not your fault for trusting your wife. It's her fault for betraying that trust. He lifted his head and looked at me with red, swollen eyes. How long did you know? 3 months, I admitted. Since the day I went to water the plants. I saw the video on the tablet, and from that moment, I knew I had to protect you, but I also knew I had to do it the right way, in a way that would let you see the truth with no room for her to deny it. David nodded slowly, processing. And the technician? How did you manage to switch the video without anyone noticing? I had help, I explained, Gregory, the security tech from my old school. He showed me how to make the copy, how to create an identical file, how to execute the plan. But the decision was mine alone. He was silent for a long moment. Then, to my surprise, he took my hand. He squeezed it tightly. Thank you, he whispered. I know it doesn't feel like it right now. I know it hurts so much I can barely breathe. But thank you for protecting me, for having the courage to do what I couldn't do, for loving me enough to destroy my fake world before she did it for me. Tears finally came to my eyes. I had maintained my composure for 3 months, throughout the whole night, but hearing my son thank me for breaking his heart was too much. I hugged him tightly, and he hugged me back. 2 broken people, holding each other up amidst the ruins of a celebration that was supposed to have been perfect. Marlene approached quietly. She had waited for everyone else to leave before coming over. Carol, do you need me to drive you home? She asked gently. David lifted his head and nodded. Yes, please. I don't think either of us is in any condition to drive. We left the ballroom together, the 3 of us. The lights were still bright. The decorations were still perfect. But the party had ended in the most spectacular and unexpected way possible. As we walked to the elevator, I saw Chris unplugging his equipment. He glanced at me briefly. There was something in his expression. Not judgment, but understanding. as if he too knew that sometimes the truth needs to be revealed in dramatic ways so it cannot be ignored. The night air was cool when we stepped out of the building. I took a deep breath. I felt the weight of 3 months of secrets lift from my shoulders. I had done what I had to do. I had protected my son. And though the road to healing would be long and painful, at least now that road could begin. Based on truth, instead of lies. The days following the party were strange and quiet. David stayed at my apartment. He didn't want to go back to that house filled with tainted memories. Every corner would remind him of Victoria. Every object would be a testament to the lie he had lived in. So he slept on my small sofa, the same sofa he had slept on as a child when he had nightmares. Except now, the nightmare was real. And there was no waking up from it. By Monday morning, the scandal had reached monumental proportions. Videos from the party were circulating on social media. Someone had recorded with their phone the moment the screens showed Victoria's betrayal. The clips were shared thousands of times. The comments were merciless. Victoria's reputation, so carefully constructed, disintegrated in 72 hours. David received calls from friends, colleagues, family. Everyone wanted to know if he was okay. Everyone expressed their support. Some admitted they had never fully trusted Victoria, that they always felt something was off. But no one had said anything. Because who questions a marriage that looks perfect from the outside? I received calls too. Marlene came by every afternoon with homemade food. She didn't ask many questions. She just sat with me in the kitchen, we drank coffee, and she held my hand when the silence became too heavy. "You're the bravest woman I know," she told me one afternoon. "Or the craziest." "Probably both things," I smiled faintly. "Probably both." On Wednesday, David finally went to the house to pick up his personal belongings. I asked him to take me with him. I didn't want him to face that place alone. When we arrived, the house felt different, empty, cold, as if the soul of the place had left along with the lies that held it up. Victoria's things were already gone. Her parents had come on Sunday to collect them. All the designer dresses, the jewelry, the shoes, the beauty products that cost more than my monthly groceries, all packed into Louis Vuitton suitcases and loaded into an SUV. She didn't come. She sent her parents to do the dirty work, cowardly to the end. David walked through the rooms like a ghost, touching surfaces, staring at empty spaces. In the living room, he stopped in front of the sofa where everything had been recorded. "I'm going to burn this piece of furniture," he said in a flat voice. "I don't want to sell it, I don't want to donate it, I want to see it burn." And we did. That same afternoon, we hired 2 men to take it out to the backyard. David doused the sofa with gasoline. He set it on fire. We stood there, watching as the flames consumed the symbol of his betrayal. The smoke rose black and thick into the gray sky. And when the flames finally died down, only ashes remained. As it should be. On Thursday, David's lawyer filed for divorce. Victoria didn't contest it. Her parents hired a lawyer for her. There were attempts at negotiation, requests for financial settlements, but David was inflexible. She would get nothing more than what the law required. And thanks to the videos, thanks to the clear evidence of adultery and planned fraud, that wasn't much. Richard, Victoria's father, called David once. It was a brief conversation. He offered an apology on behalf of his family, admitted they were ashamed, that they didn't know their daughter was capable of such cruelty. David accepted the apology but made it clear he wanted no further contact with any of them. That chapter of his life was closed. One afternoon, while David was dozing on the sofa, I received a call from an unknown number. For some reason, I answered. On the other end of the line, I heard Victoria's voice. Broken. Desperate. "Carol, please. I need to talk to you." "We have nothing to talk about," I replied coldly. "Please," she begged. "Just 5 minutes. I need you to know that I'm sorry. That everything got out of control. That I never meant to—" "You never meant to what?" I interrupted. "You never meant to cheat on my son? You never meant to call me a stupid old woman? You never meant to plan his financial destruction? Because you did all those things, Victoria. And you did them consciously. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a moment of weakness. It was a calculated campaign of deceit that lasted for years. There was a silence. Then, her voice changed. It became hard, venomous, like the voice she had used in those recordings. "You destroyed my life," she hissed. "I could have been happy. I could have had everything. But you—" "No," I cut her off. "You destroyed your own life. I just made sure David wasn't destroyed along with you. There's a difference." She hung up on me. It was the last time I ever heard her voice. Days turned into weeks. David slowly began to heal. He went back to work. His colleagues were understanding. Some even admired his strength. He started going out with friends again, laughing, not with the same ease as before, but it was a start. One night, a month after the party, we were having dinner in my apartment. Simple pasta with tomato sauce, homemade bread, cheap wine, nothing fancy, nothing perfect, but real, honest. David raised his glass to me. "To the bravest woman I know," he said. "To my mother, who loved me enough to do the hard thing, the impossible thing." We clinked our glasses. The sound echoed in my small kitchen like a bell. "You know what's strange?" David said after taking a sip. "I don't miss her. I thought I would. I thought I would spend months crying over her. But what I miss isn't the real Victoria. It's the Victoria I thought she was, and that woman never existed." "Exactly," I nodded. "You're mourning not a person, but an illusion. And that's okay. It's natural. But it's also liberating. Because now you can build something new. Something based on truth." He smiled. A small but genuine smile. "Thanks, Mom. For everything." "You're welcome, son. That's what mothers are for. To protect. To love. And sometimes, to do the things no one else is willing to do." 2 months after the party, life had found a new rhythm. It wasn't the rhythm from before. That was lost forever. But it was something different. Something more authentic. David had sold the mansion. He couldn't keep living in that place full of ghosts and lies. He bought a smaller apartment downtown. Modern. Bright. With no history. A blank canvas where he could start over. The divorce was finalized quickly. Victoria didn't fight. Her lawyers advised her to accept the terms David offered, because if the case went to trial, the videos would be presented as evidence and she would be left with nothing. So she signed the papers. She kept her car and some money. Nothing compared to what she had planned to get, but more than she deserved. I heard through Marlene, who heard from a friend, that Victoria had moved to another city. Far away from here. Far from the scandal. Far from the stares and the whispers. Her parents were devastated. Barbara left her position at the social club. She couldn't stand the looks from her friends. Richard was still working, but he had aged 10 years in 2 months. The weight of shame is heavy. As for the man in the video, he disappeared too. We never learned his full name. We never looked for him. It didn't matter who he was. It only mattered what he represented, the evidence of a betrayal, the symbol of a lie. And now he was part of the past. One Sunday afternoon, David came to visit with some news. "Mom, I met someone. It's nothing serious yet. We've only been out twice. But she's different. She is different." My heart gave a small leap of hope. "Tell me about her." "Her name is Leah. She's an engineer, like me. She works in renewable energy. She doesn't come from money. She comes from a normal, middle-class family. Like us. And when she talks, she's honest, direct. There are no layers of manipulation. No games. Just truth. It's refreshing." I smiled. "I'd like to meet her someday. When you're ready." "Soon," he promised. "I want you to meet her. Because this time, Mom, I want your approval before I get too involved. I trust your judgment. I trust that you see things I might not see." Those words filled me with warmth. My son had learned. He had grown. The pain had made him wiser. More careful. But not cynical. He still believed in love. He just did it now with his eyes wide open. A week later, I met Leah. She was a 32-year-old woman. Short brown hair, glasses, a genuine smile. She wore jeans and a simple olive green blouse. Nothing flashy. Nothing designed to impress. just herself. And that was enough. We talked for hours in my living room, about her work, about her family, about her dreams. She didn't ask about the scandal. She made no comments about Victoria. She was simply present. She listened. She shared. And when she left, I told David, "I like her, she's real." He smiled with relief. Me too. The months passed. David and Leah grew closer. I saw them together and I saw something I never saw with Victoria. Genuine laughter. Deep conversations. Mutual respect. There was no performance. No masks. Just two people getting to know each other honestly. Slowly. Without rush. As for me, I also found a new peace. I had done what I had to do. I had protected my son. Yes, the methods were dramatic. Yes, the exposure was public and brutal. But it had been necessary. And though there were moments of doubt, moments where I wondered if I had gone too far, those moments passed quickly, because I saw my son healing. I saw him finding his way back to the light. One evening, Marlene and I were sitting on my balcony, drinking tea and watching the sunset. "You know," she said suddenly, "what you did that night has become legendary. People talk about it. The mother-in-law who switched the video. The perfect revenge. You've become like a symbol, an icon for all the women who have been underestimated." "I didn't do it to be a symbol," I replied. "I did it to protect my son." "I know," Marlene said. "But still, there's power in what you did. You showed the world that older women aren't invisible. We're not foolish, we're not irrelevant. We are strong, we are strategic. And when they underestimate us, it's at their own risk." I smiled. I suppose so. The sun was setting over the city. Orange, purple, gold, beautiful. And I felt at peace. Because I had learned something important in these months. That true love sometimes requires difficult actions. That protecting someone doesn't always mean being gentle. Sometimes it means being tough, being strategic, being relentless. And that you should never ever underestimate a mother who loves her son. Because a mother will do whatever is necessary. She will cross lines others wouldn't cross. She will make decisions others wouldn't make. Not for revenge, not for ego, but for love, for protection, for justice. Victoria called me a stupid old woman. She thought that because I was 67, because I didn't wear designer clothes, because I lived in a modest apartment, I was irrelevant, harmless, easy to ignore. She was wrong, gravely wrong, and that was her downfall. Not the planning I did, not the video I switched, not the public exposure. Her downfall was underestimating me. It was believing that appearances are everything, that money is power, that age is weakness. She learned the truth too late, on a giant screen, in front of 200 people, on the night that was supposed to be her coronation. And she will never forget that lesson. Every time she looks in the mirror, every time someone recognizes her on the street, every time she tries to build a new life, she will always remember the night a 67-year-old woman destroyed her world with a simple swap of a flash drive. And I will live with that memory too, but without regret, without guilt. Because I did what had to be done. I protected what was mine to protect. I loved in the fiercest way possible. And if I had to do it all over again, I would do it exactly the same. A year after that night, David and Leah got married. It was a small ceremony, intimate, just close family and true friends. There was no lavish ballroom, no thousands of dollars in decorations. They got married in an outdoor garden under a century-old tree with the sun filtering through the leaves. Simple, beautiful, real. Leah wore an ivory-colored dress, simple yet elegant. David couldn't stop smiling, and when they exchanged vows, I cried, but they weren't tears of pain. They were tears of relief, of gratitude, of knowing that my son had finally found what he always deserved. True, honest love, without masks. At the reception, David asked to make a special toast. He stood up, glass in hand, and looked from me among the guests. "I want to dedicate this moment to my mother," he said. "Carol, the bravest woman I know. A year ago, she did something that changed my life forever. It was difficult, it was painful, but it was necessary. And thanks to her, I'm here today. With a woman who truly loves me, building a life based on honesty. Mom, this moment exists because you had the courage to do what I couldn't see needed to be done. Thank you. The guests applauded. Some who knew the full story nodded with understanding. Others simply celebrated the love between a mother and son. I raised my glass to David, and in that simple gesture, we said everything that needed to be said. He had forgiven me. More than that, he had thanked me. And I had fulfilled my purpose: to protect, to love, to liberate. That night, after the party ended and the guests had gone, I stood alone in the garden for a moment. The string lights glowed softly. The music had stopped. Only the sound of the wind in the leaves remained. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. I felt peace, complete and absolute. I thought about Victoria. I wondered where she was now. If she had learned anything, if she would ever reflect on how her arrogance and cruelty had led her to lose everything. Probably not. People like her rarely take responsibility. She probably convinced herself that she was the victim, that I was the villain, that David was the fool who let her get away. But it didn't matter. Her narrative didn't change the facts. It didn't change that she had cheated, had lied, had planned to destroy, and had paid the price for her actions. Justice doesn't always arrive wrapped in kindness. Sometimes it comes cold, calculated, inevitable. Marlene came and stood beside me. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "About endings," I replied. "About how some stories end with fireworks and others with whispers. This one ended with both." She smiled. It ended exactly as it was supposed to. She was right. This story had reached its natural conclusion. David was happy. Leah was genuine. The family they were building had a solid foundation, and I could finally rest, knowing I had fulfilled my most important duty: being a mother. Not the perfect mother, not the mother who always says yes, but the mother who does what is necessary, even when it's difficult, even when it's controversial, even when it means being seen as cruel. Because true love isn't always soft. Sometimes it's steel. Sometimes it's ice. Sometimes it's the firm hand that stops someone before they fall off a cliff. And if that makes me a villain to some, so be it. I would rather be the villain who saved her son than the martyr who watched him be destroyed in silence. The following months brought more healing. David and Leah bought a house together, small but cozy. They invited me for dinner every Sunday. We cooked together, laughed, shared stories, built new memories, clean ones, without shadows of the past. One day, David confessed something to me. "Mom, sometimes I think about that night, at the party, and I realize you didn't just save my future, you saved my dignity. If Victoria had carried out her plan, I would have been left looking like the fool who lost everything, like the man who was used and discarded. But thanks to you, I was the one who took control. I was the one who ended the marriage. I was the one who walked away with my head held high. You gave me back my power." I hadn't thought of it that way, but he was right. By exposing Victoria publicly, I had given David the chance to be the one to end the situation, not as a victim, but as the protagonist of his own story. And that was worth more than any amount of money or reputation. Now, when I look back, I see the whole journey. From that Tuesday afternoon when I found the tablet in Victoria's kitchen, to this quiet evening in my apartment writing these reflections. It has been a journey, painful, revealing, necessary. I learned that age is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is experience. It is the ability to see patterns that the young don't yet recognize. I learned that silence can be a more powerful weapon than screaming, that patience can be more devastating than impulsive anger, that waiting for the perfect moment is more effective than a hot-headed attack. And I learned that sometimes the greatest act of love is to do what others would consider unforgivable, to destroy in order to protect, to expose in order to liberate, to hurt in order to heal. The world doesn't fall apart with a bang, but with a whisper. That truth I began this story with remains true at the end. The whisper of a flash drive being swapped, the whisper of a truth revealing itself on a screen, the whisper of a fake life collapsing as a real life begins to emerge. And I, Carol, a 68-year-old woman now, can finally say that I am at peace. I did what I had to do. I protected what I had to protect. I loved as only a mother can love, without conditions, without limits, without regrets. The film is over. Only the credits remain. And in those credits, in invisible but indelible letters, is my name. Not as a villain, not as a hero, simply as a mother, as a woman, as the person who was willing to walk through fire so her son wouldn't have to. And if Victoria is reading this, from wherever she is, I want her to know one last thing. I didn't win because I was crueler. I won because I was smarter. Because while you saw a stupid old woman, I saw the whole game. Because while you were underestimating, I was strategizing. Because while you were lying, I was documenting. Never underestimate a woman who has more years than you. Because those years are not dead weight. They are an arsenal. They are lessons learned. They are battles won and lost. They are the difference between playing chess and playing checkers. And I, dear Victoria, was always playing chess. While you were thoughtlessly moving pawns, I had already planned the checkmate. It took 3 months. But it was inevitable. It was perfect. It was justice. The sun sets over my city once more. Orange, purple, gold. And I sit by my window with a cup of tea, looking towards the future. A future where my son is happy, where love is honest, where the truth finally won. And I smile, because in this world of appearances and lies, I achieved something rare. I made the truth shine so brightly that no lie could survive it. And that, at the end of the day, is all that matters. The film is over. The credits have rolled. And my name, though invisible to many, is written on every frame of this story. The woman who switched the flash drive. The mother who protected. The strategist who won. Carol, 68 years old, retired teacher, fierce mother, and the last person you would ever want to underestimate.